Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemers Bible with the usual crew. Anybody have any opening comments today?
I do. I am happy to announce that I'm done with the courses for my masters. So this means that I'm left only with the thesis, and then I'm going to be a master of baiting. So I for this occasion, for this for this occasion, I bought some Israeli craft beer, stout. I haven't drank stout in quite a while, so this is Malka.
Well, I'll join you in that.
Gross.
Yeah, this is a local one.
Yes.
I do have some vodka upstairs. I might grab that.
Yep, I got some rum right next to me, as you know.
Speaking about this chapter, this is
Breakfast
13,
of
not
Champions.
12. Yeah, that's Guinness. Don't steal from them. So what I want to say. Oh, so we are starting with chapter 13, which is about the reign of Abijah, aka Abiyam in Kings.
Or
yeah.
if you're English speaking, Abijah.
Abijah.
Abijah? Oh, I remember.
Abijah.
Yeah. It could work as a Mormon name, right?
Why not?
I guess. Kinda. Okay. Who reads?
Yes, who does read this one?
I'm a little bit stuffy this morning, so I'll wait until later when I maybe feel a little bit better.
When the decongestant.
Isaac is British and therefore has a natural narrator's voice.
That is true.
Indeed.
I do have some IKEA furniture arriving at some point, so
Well, now
just in case
you've
it
got to
make-
go first.
yeah, I might have to be muted. Oh yeah, maybe I'll do this quickly. So the whole chapter.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. In the 18th year of King Jeroboam, Abijah became king over Judah. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Mikra, daughter of Uriel of Gibeah. There was war between Abijah and Jeroboam. Abijah joined battle with a force of warriors, 400,000 picked men. Jeroboam arrayed for battle against him, 800,000 picked men, warriors. Abijah stood on top of Mount Zemaraim in the hill country of Ephraim and said, "Listen to me, Jeroboam and all Israel. Surely you know that the Lord God of Israel gave David kingship over Israel forever to him and his sons by a covenant of salt. Jeroboam, son of Nevat, had been in the service of Solomon, son of David, but he rose up and rebelled against his master. Riffraff and scoundrels gathered around him and pressed hard upon Rehoboam, son of Solomon. Rehoboam was inexperienced and faint-hearted and could not stand up to them. Sorry, faint-hearted rather than faith-hearted. Now you are bent on opposing the kingdom of the Lord, which is in the charge of the sons of David, because you are a great multitude and possess the golden calves that Jeroboam made for you as gods. Did you not banish the priests of the Lord, the sons of Aaron and the Levites, and like the people of the land appoint your own priests? Anyone who offered himself for ordination with a young bull of the herd and 7 rams became a priest of no gods." That's no gods with a hyphen. No gods. "As for us, the Lord is our God, and we have not forsaken him. The priests who minister to the Lord are the sons of Aaron, and the Levites are at their tasks. They offer burnt offerings in smoke each morning and each evening, and the aromatic incense, the roast of bread on the pure table. They kindle the golden lampstand with its lamps, burning each evening, for we keep the charge of the Lord our God, while you have forsaken it. See, God is with us as our chief, and his priests have the trumpets for sounding blasts against you. O children of Israel, do not fight the Lord God of your fathers, because you will not succeed." Jeroboam, however, had directed the ambush to go around and come from the rear. Thus, the main body was in front of Judah, while the ambush was behind them. When Judah turned around and saw that the fighting was before and behind them, they cried out to the Lord, and the priests blew the trumpets. The men of Judah raised a shout, and when the men of Judah raised a shout, God routed Jeroboam and all Israel before Abijah and Judah. The Israelites fled before Judah, and God delivered them into their hands. Abijah and his army inflicted a severe defeat on them. 500,000 picked men of Israel fell slain. The Israelites were crushed at the time, while the people of Judah triumphed, because they relied on the Lord God of their fathers. Aviah pursued Jeroboam and captured some of his cities, Bethel with its dependencies, Yeshana with its dependencies, and Ephraim, or Ephron with its
F1 Ketiv.
dependencies. Yeah, Ephron, yeah. Jeroboam could not muster strength again during the days of Aviah. The Lord struck him down and he died. But Aviah grew powerful. He married 14 wives and begat 22 sons and 16 daughters. The other events of Aviah's reign, his conduct, and his acts are recorded in the story of the prophet Iddo. Aviah slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. His son Asa succeeded him as king. The land was untroubled for 10 years.
Oh yeah, it looks like
the last verse
the
is
chapter.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no,
should I give the Christian
no,
Bible?
in the Christian Bible. It's
Did I do an extra verse or something?
Hey,
Yeah,
if you
kinda.
guys remember from my video on it.
I don't.
Okay, good. Well,
Go watch Lawrence's video on chapter numbers and verses.
Girls,
yeah.
you're both pretty.
Yeah, Christian
the
didn't
thing
invent
is-
verses.
yeah, this
They just invented the numbers.
while
The nerds like that.
the Hebrew tradition always had some way to distinguish between verses, the numbering would have initially, very basically, come from the Christians, and then the Jews were like, "Hey, this numbering's pretty good, but let's make it match up with our parsing."
Yeah.
So yeah, things are slightly different.
Yeah, I think Jewish people might have had an earlier system based on like the parasha. So they they divided the whole Bible into like 50.
No, the parasha is only
parashot.
for the parasha is only for the Pentateuch, right?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, that's right. They only had this for the Pentateuch, and they divided the whole Torah, the 5 books of Moses. They divided that into like 50 parashot, and they would read one each week. So technically, you could argue that those are kind of like big chapters, or book like semi books or whatever, and then they would divide each parasha into 7 for each day of the week. And there was also a little section that they would repeat at the end called the maftir. And so in a sense, they kind of had a system where they could say, let's say, Parshat Bashalach, Yom Rishon. Actually, they wouldn't say Yom Rishon; they would say Kohen, because in the synagogue, the Kohen, the priest, would get the first part. He would get to read the first section when they would read it. So technically, it's divided by day, but they actually would read multiple on the actual Saturday. They would read the whole parasha on the Saturday. So the first day section would be read by a Kohen, or if he couldn't read it himself, he would get called up, say the blessing, and then someone else, an appointed reader, would read it. And then the second one is for the Levite, and then it would go 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, or the 7th one was the maftir, whatever, something like that. So they kind of had a little system in place already before they used the chapter number. Just, you could they
Similar,
weren't
I suppose,
numbering
to
verses.
which paragraph or
Yeah, it's more like
visually,
and it
kind of.
yeah, it's kind of visual, and it's because if you look at a Torah scroll, there are little gaps and stuff, so it's kind of paragraphed, but those paragraphs are sometimes they're too small. You can have a paragraph that's like one line.
We have a comment from Matthew WK 7507, who sent 5 RN Raw gift memberships, and then we have Dara Gokane. I know I'm saying that all kinds of wrong. 4236, who says, how often do God's chosen people lose fights in the book? God is on our side. Doesn't seem to matter for who wins.
Well, see, the thing is, they only lost because they weren't worshiping God well enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me is how many
side.
people need to die over this? I mean,
yes,
we spend an awful lot of time killing people, and one of the things that I always thought would be a thing, if there was in fact one God, was that there would be people working together, multiple nations or whatever, working together for a common goal and all of that, and achieving great things. But no, you don't get any of that in the Bible.
It's really just, as I was mentioning to a friend yesterday, the Old Testament is just the account of how God makes promises to people and then fails, breaks all his promises, never keeps a one, and it's always their fault. And then he does claim victory in times when he actually also failed them, but there's a plausible cover story. They bribe and call it a victory. It's God is a terrible friend, a worse master in any sense you want to use that word, and just an epic failure at just do not. God's way is always the worst way. Nothing fails like prayer. Whatever God's way is, do the opposite, because he sucks.
Got a couple of comments from Aptivist number 2, who says, Aaron, I've followed your work for a long time. Big respect to you. Thank you very much.
Oh,
And I live in Garland, which is the town I live in. And he says, but I'm mostly bedbound, so I don't get out. Still nice to know we are close locality-wise. Well, if you're in Garland, we can set up a time. I'll bring, go down to Intrinsic with one of my snakes or whatever. We can meet up.
They're a very sweet couple. I know them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are, and used to be pretty active in the community until some health problems hit. Still much appreciated. Good friends.
Absolutely. Love you guys. Mwah. And they have an adorable cat called Poppy.
Okay, so I'll start with the commentary. First, we'll note that verses 1 and 2 are parallel with 1 Kings 15, 1 through 2, and 2b through 3. 2b through 3 is parallel with 1 Kings 15, 6, and 22 is parallel with 1 Kings 15, 7. So, we'll start on verse 2. His mother's name was Micaiah, daughter of Uriel of Gibeah. 1 Kings 15:2 reads, his mother's name was Ma'akah, daughter of Abishalom. Targum explains that because Ma'akah was a worthy woman, her name was changed to the more excellent one, quote-unquote, of Micaiah. Her father's name was changed to Uriel so as not to recall the name of Absalom. And there is an interesting quote here by Pseudo-Rashi that he writes, that a bit long, but he calls her by a different name, Ma'akah, the daughter of Absalom. It is likewise written, blah, 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 blah. Micaiah, the daughter of Uriel, was her real name, and here he calls her thus because this is the genealogical record of Judah. In Kings, which is the book of the kings of Israel and Judah, he calls her by her nickname, Ma'akah, the daughter of Absalom. Now, for this reason, they nicknamed her Ma'akah rather than call her by her real name, Micaiah. She was called by the name of her daughter-in-law, who was a valiant woman, a heroic woman, as it is written in 15:16, and also Ma'akah, daughter of King Asa, and in honor of her daughter-in-law, they called the mother-in-law by the daughter-in-law's name. So it is explained in Yerushalmi, etc., etc. Kimchi and Botseko wrote that she had two names. Likewise, Japhet suggested that both Micaiah and Ma'akah are the same person, and that she was the daughter of Tamar and of Uriel, making her a granddaughter of Absalom, already suggested by Josephus in Antiquities 8:249. Levin, however, writes that this doesn't solve the problem that Ma'akah was the mother of Abijah's son Asa, found in 15:16 and 1 Kings 15:10. He writes that Japhet plays with the idea of Asa being the brother of Abijah, but since this contradicts the information provided by both Kings and Chronicles, she concludes that no one solution can encompass all the evidence. Klein notes another possibility. Abijah's mother was Micaiah, the daughter of Uriel, and Asa's mother was Micaiah, daughter of Abishalom. Thus, 1 Kings 15:2 has been corrupted by attraction to 1 Kings 15:10 and 1 Kings 15:13, which are dealing with the mother of Asa. Then 2 Chronicles 11:20-22 is built on this secondary reading, which means that 1 Kings 15:2 and 2 Chronicles 11:20-22 are incorrect, whilst 2 Chronicles 13:2, 15:16, and 1 Kings 15:10 are correct. On verse 3, the numbers given in this verse are unrealistic for the time. Klein notes that some, like Myers, suggested that Elef does not mean 1,000, but rather a much smaller military unit, or to repoint the word as aluf, which means commander or colonel.
Yeah, I think we went over some of that in the
yes,
Pentateuch,
of course.
right? Yeah.
we went over this for many passages.
Yeah.
He writes,
Talking of
however,
stupid words. Colonel spelt colonel. but pronounced
Numbers
colonel.
are always wrong. Just
In-
assume the numbers are wrong.
Yeah, in
And then
Hebrew
you
it's
got
colonel.
lieutenant, which is pronounced lieutenant in America, but neither pronunciation completely matches the
Lieutenant
other.
in America?
Was it the other way around?
It's the other way around.
Yeah. So we say lieutenant and Americans say lieutenant, but either spelling does either pronunciation exactly.
I
how it's
love
spelled.
English.
You know why they don't say lieutenant in America, Isaac? If they did, Trump
Why?
would basically make it illegal. Call it lieutenant.
Yes. They'd have to be called right tenant.
They have to be called right tenants.
From now on, we're going to rename it Radical Lieutenant.
Yes.
I could see that as a video game. That would be fun. Radical lieutenant.
Anyways,
Power
he
to the
writes.
people.
He writes, however, that these suggestions are unconvincing. He notes that the significance of the numbers is that Judah is outnumbered 2-1, which makes its subsequent victory result solely from God's intervention. The numbers may be derived from the census numbers in 2 Samuel 24:9, where the Masoretic text gives the number for Israel as 800,000, but Judah's number is 500,000. However, the Lucenic recension there and Josephus in Antiquity 7:320 read 400,000 of Judah. And I see that Klein notes that there is one Hebrew manuscript which has Arba'asa, which means 14. Which still, I think, quite high, but not as high as what's here. Okay, on verse 4, commentators note that the imagery of this verse is unrealistic. Klein writes that it is unrealistic that Abijah's voice could be heard by the 800,000 men in Jeroboam's army. Japhet writes that the scene is directed in a very dramatic fashion, and is completely unrealistic, quote-unquote, but gives the chronicler a chance to show his definitive opinion about the schism. A chance to show his definitive opinion about the schism. The
Bible
imagery of Abijah's...
commentators are talking about how unbelievable that is.
Yes?
Okay. There's so many other opportunities to note how unbelievable bits of the Bible are, but at least there's something they notice that about.
Oh, if you want a primer, I always recommend going to Gutenberg and reading Colonel Ingersoll's Mistakes of Moses. It's just
Anywho.
hilarious.
Yeah. So the imagery of Abijah's speech is reminiscent of the speech by Jotham, son of Gideon, in Judges 9:7. The exact identity of Mount Semaraim is unclear. The name Semaraim appears in Joshua 18:23 and seems to be derived from the word Tzameret, appearing only 5 times in the Bible, only in Ezekiel, as was in 17:3 and 22, and 31:3, 10, and 14, which means treetop. Some of the locations proposed include Ras Es Semara, according to Klaus Koch, Khirbet El Mazaria, according to Williamson, Ras Et Tachune, according to Gustav Dahlmann and Levin, or Jebel Usur, according to Kiel.
I mean, it's probably just there because it rhymes with Ephraim. Mount Zemariah in Ephraim.
If that's true, then it's stupid.
I do love in this text how
It's true.
it's possibly one of the few places where the actual spiritual practices of the northern Israel kingdom are still recorded. And of course, they're trying to pretend it's a later perversion brought on by turning away from the one true God. But all the evidence shows that these were the older practices and longer standing. So clearly, I mean, it talks about how their priests were selected, how they would have to pay a tribute to become a priest of a certain amount, which would not have been easy for a lot of people. And it's possible they would have included some sort of foundling clause as well but the golden calves, we know this is part of the reason for that whole narrative of Moses and the golden calf and the how could you blah 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 blah. But it's all very reflective of this attempt to rewrite, we were the original and you are just the dirty cheats who turned on us. And it's the narrative of the usurper again. Again, again, again. How many times have I pointed this out in the past 3 years? I have no idea. It's a lot.
It should be noted that the Septuagint has Mount Somoron, which, according to Klein, is an alternate spelling for Samaria, which represents a Greek corruption.
Somoron sounds like a Book of Mormon name.
Of course, it does.
Joseph Smith really liked names that had the word moron in it. There's at least 5, 6 different ones, including moron spelt in 3 different ways.
That was before the word was used in the context to which we are all now thinking, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
The Greek word, there's a Greek word for idiot that is like moros, or mor, and then in an accusative sense, moron. So maybe not.
Yeah, it's only from the 1900s. No, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay,
the doctor, the psychiatrists were influenced by the Book of Mormon in using that.
The Book of Moron. Yeah.
Okay, on verse 5, a covenant of salt, in Hebrew, Brit Melach. The expression appears in Numbers 18:19, which describes, quote, the perpetual covenant between God and the Aaronite priests, end quote, according to Levin. Probably because salt preserves food for a long time, according to Gersonides and Ibn Kaspi. Klein notes that W. Robertson Smith compared this to the sacredness of the bond among Arabs who have eaten salt together, quote unquote. Targum reads, just as it is impossible that the waters of the sea could ever be sweetened, so it is impossible that authority should ever pass from those of the house of David.
And here I thought that a salty breast was just, God liked it more because it was more painful.
Oh my God, Aaron. No, not Aaron.
That was not imagery that I wanted this morning. Thanks.
Yeah, that is a little out. See, I was just gonna hope it could be undone with pepper. The covenant of salt.
Are you cooking that baby or just giving it a second session?
Well, depends which part of the Bible you're reading, because they do like to cook their babies occasionally. God does.
Got a comment from Bruno Zygerts, 6379, offers $5 Californian, and says, as they say, history is written by the winners.
Kind of.
And by the way, when I say California, I really mean Canada.
We're getting to there.
California has been asking to leave you and join us, but
Cascadia.
I'm just saying it's the 5th largest economy in the world. We might be persuaded. But you need Tim Hortons on every corner.
The Bible, in the sense, is like a history written by the losers who wanted to blame it on themselves and say, we were bad and that's why we lost. And so they rewrote history to give them the blame for their own misery.
Yeah, I would accuse them of a degradation kink, but quite frankly, it's far more horrible than that. It's just the mentality of an abuse victim to always give a justification to the abuser and find a way in which you were in some way responsible, because there's 2 sides to every story, so I have to take care of my own. No, sometimes someone's just shit.
Okay, on verses 8 and 9, Dillard comments, quote, for the chronicler, the kingdom of David was the kingdom of God. That kingdom was forever to be in the hands of David's descendants. For the post-exilic audience to which he wrote, an audience living without a Davidic king, this speech must have expressed their hopes and aspirations. The speech argues from the 2 foci of legitimate king and legitimate cult. In the chronicler's own day, legitimate cult was a reality with the Second Temple, and aspirations for political freedom fired hopes for the re-establishment of the Davidic dynasty. Israel as the kingdom of Yahweh is one of the chronicler's favorite themes, as we see in 1 Chronicles 17:14, 28:5, 29:11, and 23, etc.
Got another comment from Saleman1, offers $1.99. It says, what version of the Bible are you guys reading?
A lot of them.
Yes.
I am using the NRSV UE. I'm I think Aaron is using that one as well.
The
I
boys
just
are using
read-
JPS. I
Yeah.
have an NIV right now, though I have a couple others, but my American Standard Version is too small. It's a tiny little
I think
pocket.
The thing
I
is,
think
we
both me
also
and Tom are reading JPS, but I'm reading the work version.
Yeah.
Ah,
But we also have
we,
the Masoretic text as well.
yeah we also often like I mean Tomer and Isaac especially go back to the Hebrew a lot. If there
Yeah.
is, I mean, definitely once we get to the New Testament, I'll be just going over the Greek. But it pops up sometimes here for any Septuagint readings.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's always a valuable insight. But yeah, I should go through the Bibles in my house and see how many different translations I have on hand at any given time. So I can think of 4 off the top of my head, but one of those would be King James Version, and we know how you feel about that.
Yeah. Okay, on verse 12, Klein comments, quote, Abijah lines up arguments to show that the military advantage is really with Judah, despite the great disparity in numbers. God is with Judah as the head of their army, and the priests are all set to blow the battle trumpets, which are a characteristic feature of the Yahweh war, as we see in Numbers 18, 8 and 9, and 31, 6. At the end, Abijah uses a vocative address aimed at the grievously erring Israelites, who are still Israelites. He reminds them that Yahweh is the God of their ancestors, but that he is now on Judah's side. He pleads with them not to fight against Yahweh and reminds them that they are doomed to failure. Of the 13 times that tzalach, succeed, is used in Chronicles, it is used with a negative imperative only here and in the speech of Zechariah in 24:20. As Rudolph remarks, Abijah is the legal advocate of the true Israel, and therefore it is not surprising that the negative judgment of Abijam of 1 Kings 15:3 is dropped in Chronicles. Ironically, Abijah calls on the north to desist from fighting, whereas earlier the prophet Shemaiah had forbidden Judah to fight against the north, as we see in 2 Chronicles 11:4, aka 1 Kings 12:24.
So both the prophets are telling them to calm down, go to their rooms, and stop trying to stab your brother.
Kinda.
Okay.
On verse 17, 500,000 casualties. This number is highly unlikely, as Dillard notes, again. Yeah.
I just love the commentary reading through the Bible going, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. As Dillard notes, the total military casualties of the U.S. during World War II are around 1 million, the dead numbering more than 400,000, and the wounded more than 600,000. As noted in verse 4, the figures are hyperbolic and probably have a relationship to the number of Judeans in David's census, as we see in 2 Samuel 2:9.
Yeah, it's the wildly exaggerated numbers. It's a pretty interesting indication, though, because you laugh at the commentary, but the truth is, a lot of the Christians you deal with have no scholarship whatsoever, though they're not always aware of that. And they, the evangelical, the Jerry Falwell, it was, God just typewritering into people's brains the text. That hasn't. I don't think that's ever been the view of scholarship. Even in its earliest stages, scholarship was aware that there was some, the prophecy is subject to the spirit of the prophet kind of vibe, and that numbers might be miscopied or something like that. So we're aware it's a wild exaggeration. Those with education have always been aware it's a wild exaggeration. But yeah, that's never stopped the true believers from being willfully blind to that reality.
I should note that there is a comment by Kimchi who writes that there is about the severe defeat in Hebrew Makarabah. There is the following midrashic interpretation found in Yerushalmi Yevamot 82b. Quote, why does the text say a severe defeat? It means beyond killing them. Abijah's army saw to it that their wives would be unable to marry. They say, Rabbi Abba, son of Kahana, says, they mutilated their faces beyond recognition. It is in connection with this that it says, the extent to which their faces are recognizable, Hakaret Panihem accuses them in Isaiah 3:9, referring to the nose.
Ouch.
Yeah, but so more or less the idea here is that in Jewish law, divorce is done by the husband only.
Mm.
And so if a husband goes missing or is presumed dead, but there is no body or whatever, she is called an aguna. She is like, she's not divorced, and so she can't remarry. But she also doesn't have a husband. So it's a very sad case, but there's nothing we can do about it, sort of thing.
Oh, yes, how terrible for her.
Is
Yeah.
this
But
where
apparently
the husband
yeah.
accidentally trips and falls below the floorboards where no one ever finds him again?
Well, we don't know. This is where he vanishes under mysterious circumstances. And when they come to tell her that they cannot find her husband, she's in a long, flowing dress robe and very tearful.
With her new
but the-
friend, that other woman that's always with her now?
Well, she does need support in this most trying of times.
She legally can't remarry, so that
Oh
could
no,
be
there's
a
not
boon
another
for
man who
some.
can claim propriety ownership over her. Oh, the poor dear.
Yeah, so I can see how that might be used in that way. But although there are like other places where it talks about like especially soldiers going to war, they would actually give their wives a get, which is what the divorce certificate is called. That's kind of like, what's the word? Not optional. If they're not found, if I don't come back, you are divorced retroactively. But if I come back, then the divorce never happened. So
Right. It is a way for her to be free
Conditional.
if he's missing in action, not
Yeah.
definitely killed in action.
Yeah. So it's a conditional sort of divorce.
They would also give a get document to demons.
Oh, that sounds interesting, Madrish.
Funny, I haven't received any.
Well, actually, it was Lilith demons specifically.
Yeah, imagine.
Oh, they forgot to serve them. Sorry, I don't think they count.
They were like, get.
I dare you.
Okay. On verse 19.
You should have pulled
Levin
out. You should have pulled out your riding crop.
I don't think I needed to, but if you wish.
Okay,
I'm
on
just
verse
saying.
19. On verse 19, Levin comments, quote, "Of the three places captured, Bethel and Ephraim or Ophrah are well known, both situated on the central road leading north from Jerusalem towards Shechem, and both considered to be towns of Benjamin according to Joshua 18, 22, and 23. Although both are actually situated north of the Benjamin-Ephraim border described in Joshua 18:13. Bethel is also often referred to as being in Mount Ephraim, as we see in Judges 4:5 and 1 Chronicles 7:28. Aharoni proposed to solve this conundrum by following Alt in dating the tribal boundaries to the pre-monarchic era, while assuming, with Cross and Wright, that the town lists of Judah and Benjamin reflect the boundaries of the kingdom of Judah during the days of Yehoshaphat, perhaps including Ophrah and Bethel in Benjamin, quote-unquote, as a result of this very war. Kalai agreed, although there are differences of opinion as to whether the area was reconquered by Israel in the days of Baasha. On verse 20, Japhet writes that this verse suggests that Jeroboam died during Abijah's lifetime, but this does not agree with what is told in Kings. According to 1 Kings 15:1, Abijah ruled in the 18th year of Jeroboam's reign, and after him Asa ruled in the 20th year of Jeroboam, in 1 Kings 15:9. Jeroboam ruled 22 years, as we've seen in 1 Kings 14:20, and lived after Abijah's death. Pseudo-Rashi explains that he did not die immediately, but continuously deteriorated because of the wars. Kimchi writes that Yahweh inflicted harm upon Jeroboam in his battles, and he died in that lowly state, unable to muster any more strength from the time that Abijah reigned. Likewise, Levin writes that the verse says that Jeroboam did not recover during Abijah's lifetime, and that he eventually died. Dillard writes that the verse correctly implies that Jeroboam outlived Abijah, and that the report of his death is telescoped and should be compared with the similar immediate report of the death of a defeated enemy in the case of Sennacherib in 2 Kings 1937, even though about 20 years would elapse between his defeat in 701 BC and his death. Nevertheless, Klein writes that the chronicler may have changed the order of these deaths to show that Abijah was more blessed than Jeroboam. It is interesting to note that Genesis Rabbah 73:5 interprets the verse as referring to Abijah being struck by the Lord because of the sin of conquering Bethel without purging it of idolatrous entities, for he had found one of the calves there. According to Talmud Yerushalmi Yevamot 82b, Abijah shamed Jeroboam publicly, and therefore Yahweh inflicted him. On verse 21, Japhet comments, quote, although the passage reflects chronistic idiom, like Vaytchazek and Vayisa, and conforms to the chronicler's view that children are a sign of blessing, these are hardly sufficient reason to doubt the information itself. These similar accounts for Rehoboam in 11:18-21 and Jehoshaphat in 21:2-4 indicate that systematic family records were kept for all the Davidic kings, except Asa, who reigned before the major crisis in the days of Athaliah. One wonders whether the chronicler had access to a source with this genealogical information, which the Deuteronomistic author of Kings simply ignored, or whether these were fragmentary records which somehow survived to the chronicler's time. It may well have been the threat of extinction of the Davidic house with the execution of Ahaziah and the murder of the whole royal family, compare on chapter 22, which inspired the systematic recording of the main genealogical facts of the house of David.
I suppose it's interesting from the perspective of the priests, if you've put your entire religio-political authority is built on leaning against the Davidic dynasty and that dynasty is killed off, then you need a backup genealogy like yesterday. Otherwise, God can't come back from it. Not that
I love the arguments from authority, too. It's like, these people don't have authority. George Carlin said that he has just as much authority as the Pope, just fewer people who realize it.
I think I have more authority than the Pope because I have better equipment. But yeah, you have to remember that while we are aware of the problems with the argument from authority, at this point in history, it was pretty much the only thing going. Doesn't make it particularly wise, but it does make it more understandable that they would just assume it's good.
We have a comment from Motivo Trevorn 10100 and says, in what way would you suggest Judea and Israel's history aligns with the continuation of the line of kings based on the Bible's narrative of the first king of Israel to Jeroboam, etc.?
Well, I would think that, like, starting with David, it would be. I'm guessing. I don't think we actually have like many good reasons to doubt the line itself. Now, the stories about them are that's different. There's clearly a lot of propaganda, but the fact that at least some of these kings we can actually confirm the existence of with contemporary extra biblical references shows that, you know, it's not just like the line of kings isn't like just bullshit. They probably would have had these like actual kings.
No, and it shows
say-
that they claimed their authority to come from being descended from the line of David, so it was a dynasty claim.
I mean, yeah, he's saying that the first kings until like Jeroboam, so we don't really have any direct evidence for any of them, like Saul, David, Jeroboam, Rehoboam, but it does make sense that the line, like the kings of Judah, descend from a house of David. We don't know who the David was necessarily, and if he had a kingdom or what size it was. And Jeroboam, do you think Jeroboam was a historical character?
I mean, I think he probably was. And I actually think he might have set up calf statues too. Although probably just one. Because the Dan one was a later addition.
And it wouldn't have been
Would
a
have been an
new
L
thing
statue
to
rather
put
than a.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a new
calves in the
thing,
worship.
right? Yeah,
It would have been building more of what was going on at the time.
Well, the thing is, they would have like in the ancient Near East, they still viewed like bulls with strength, right? They still had that connection. It was very symbolic of deities. There are ostraca that show, what was it? One of them, I forget the name, but it was like my bull.
Little pony.
No, my bull. That's funny.
My
No,
little pony.
my
no, my little
bull
pony.
is L was like one of the names on there. So like the imagery is actually very early. So I think that it's totally possible that he set up a golden calf statue, and then later on they were like, actually, maybe it would have been later on, maybe around like the 8th century BCE, that there was this Yahweh alone movement that started. Especially you'll see in like Hosea, for example. He talks about people who kiss calf statues. So I think that there was this Yahweh alone movement that was burgeoning, and then only later on, in from the period of Hezekiah through Josiah, you get this this kind of polemicizing of like, oh, that was actually the most evil thing you could do. So even in the text that we have, like in Kings, it's portrayed as this totally awful thing, but in reality, it would have been like, oh, well, you guys are worshiping, like bulls. Here you go. Here's a bigger one, because we do have like archaeological finds of like
There's always one bull bigger than the
bull
other.
statuettes. So like in worship sites, like clearly like open air worship sites. So it's
Yeah, the bull is a strong local theme. If anything, I would suggest the lions were taken from Babylon because the bull was the symbol of power natural to the region.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is natural for one bull to be bigger than the other, or at least to hang lower. Anyway,
Hang
so
low.
it's the idea that what you're saying is that there probably was someone called Jeroboam, son of Nevat, who was remembered as he was a pre-Omri king of Israel that is remembered for setting up a bull. But
that that is what I
the-
think. So, some people do
Right.
disagree. There's an argument to be made that first the story about Moses and the golden calf was written first, and then that was a way to polemicize Jeroboam. But I view it the entirely opposite way.
It's
Oh, okay.
it's I mean, it's fair to say that there's an argument. That's the thing. There's lots of arguments about the nuances of it, but none of them allow that this is, a literal history and actually, ooh, look, I came up with a different
you
god.
wouldn't have
Precious there.
right, but like the exact relationship between Jeroboam and later kings, like that we know of, and was he at the same time as Rehoboam? We don't know. And was his father Nevat a king, or was he I doubt he was actually a rebel against Solomon.
It reminds me of
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but the line. I mean, considering our other early kings list from the regions, even if we don't have contemporary evidence for some of these kings, we just take them because like we have contemporary evidence for enough of them where it's like, sure, why not?
Yeah, there's no reason to doubt it. It is a source, albeit a highly imperfect one. But it makes me think of.
I mean, there's reason to doubt that Israel was a breakaway state from the south.
Yes, but just the list of names that they existed and were rulers in a line. More that it just reminds me of Tyrion Lannister near the end of Game of Thrones, which I know, ew, but they when he says, people buy into stories and then they try and sell Bran the Broken on that premise. I know, but it's very much that a case of whenever these bits are written and when they're folded into the later text, it's because the narrative serves a purpose for building up the authority of the people who are writing it, but often including elements of older stories, elements of known history to fold in. So it's interesting. You can see the motivation, but you also you can see how it varies over time, but keeps coming back to building the authority because they are so special with their authority.
Are we ready to move on to the next chapter?
Wait, what about there is another comment?
Okay. And Matty Moo White says, Tomer, when did the text change from talking about Benjamin as a person / tribe to Benjamin as a place or religion?
Oh, region.
Region.
I don't know.
You're right, region. I'm sorry.
When it within the text itself, within the narrative, when Benjamin dies.
Yeah. But like generally, I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm saying he said as a tribe as opposed to a place. I mean, it does seem to be that Benjamin and Simeon seem to be like absorbed into Judah or like swallowed up by them pretty early on. Like they don't really get much, like as a tribe, they don't really get much screen time.
No,
get a
not
few
as an
people
independent
from the
tribe.
but that's it. Yeah.
Though there is the mention that they also cast in their lot with Judah, whereas Simeon doesn't even get that recognition. But
yeah, it's just like these cities were Simeons, and that's it. Now they're part of Judah. Yeah.
So I have a final comment on verse 22. The annotations of the prophet Iddo. Hebrew for annotations is midrash. The word appears only here and in 24:27, which reads the midrash of the Book of Kings. Kimchi writes that it was called a midrash because it was regularly sought out, in Hebrew midrash, for the purpose of looking up matters pertaining to the kings. Klein notes Rudolph's opinion that the midrash of Iddo was an excerpt from the great historical work that lay before the chronicler. Japhet writes that it is possible that there was a persistent tradition about a prophet by the name Iddo, although what he did and wrote is impossible to know. Later rabbinic sources took the term midrash to mean exegesis, though the precise meaning of the word here is uncertain and is rendered as book in most early translations, Targum reads midrash, and story by most English translations.
Did you mention last chapter? Because it's probably a spelling mistake. Instead of saying Iddo, it says like Yedo.
Yedo. I don't think so.
It's spelt. Let me go to it.
No, there is.
Maybe it's not last.
No.
Oh yeah, it's not last chapter. It's
no.
Maybe it's a few before.
No, I do recall that there is like I think Josephus calls him Yadon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but there is in the Hebrew text. There is one where it spells it like Yud Aleph, Ayin Dalet Vav. Like,
yeah, but that's not
Yado,
here.
Yedo. Yeah, it's
Right.
It's not chapter 12 or 13, but it's a few
Oh.
chapters. All right. Any Christians?
No.
No.
They don't really care about this to Chronicles.
Chronicles.
It's okay. Neither do I.
Of course.
All right, then. Are we ready for the next
Yeah.
chapter?
Yes, please, Aaron.
Okay.
End the misery.
And Abijah lieth with his fathers, and they bury him in the city of David, and reign doth Asa his son in his stead. In his days was the land quiet 10 years. And Asa doth that which is good, and
Wait,
that
what
which is
translation?
right.
are you reading
What chapter are you on?
14.
14.
He's reading 14, which is I read from the Hebrew Bible, so it my chapter 13 ended at the end of.
Oh, okay.
verse
Sorry.
2, Aaron just
But
read.
also,
dumb.
Arn, are you reading like the KJV or some shit?
Well,
Fucking.
I want to read the Bible literally.
Oh my God! Shut up.
Literally.
Literarily, perhaps.
So,
At least he's
Young's
not reading.
literal translation it is.
At least he's not reading the Joseph Smith translation.
Would you prefer me not to read Young's literal translation?
You can do
You should
whatever.
read the Wycliffe Bible.
Young's
What? Fuck it.
You want me to read the Wycliffe Bible?
No,
Yeah.
nobody wants that.
Keep going
I
with
do.
Young's. It's fun.
Okay. Which Bible? Which version am I reading?
I'm sure
Let
the
Lois
atheists
decide.
can all read along at home. Goodness knows we read more Bible than the believers.
And turneth aside the altars of the stranger and the high places, and breaketh the standing pillars, and cutteth down the shrines, and saith to Judah to seek Jehovah, God of their fathers, and to do the law and the command. And he turneth aside out of all cities of Judah the high places and the images, and the kingdom is quiet before him. And he buildeth cities of bulwarks in Judah, for the land hath quiet. The land hath quiet. And there is no war with him in these years, because Jehovah hath given rest to him. And he saith to Judah, let us build these cities and compass them with wall and towers, two-leaved doors and bars, while the land is before us, because we have sought Jehovah our God. We have sought, and he giveth rest to us round about. And they build and prosper. And there is to Asa a force bearing target and spear out of Judah 300,000, and out of Benjamin bearing shield and treading bow 280,000. All these are mighty of valor. And come out unto them doth Zerah and Cushite with a force of 1,000,000.
The Cushite.
And chariots 300, and he cometh unto Mareshah. And Asa goeth out before him, and they set battle in array in the valley of Zephathah and Mareshah. And Asa calleth unto Jehovah his God, and say, Jehovah, it is nothing with thee to help between the mighty and those who have no power. Help us, O Jehovah, our God, for on thee we have leant, and in thy name we have come against this multitude. O Jehovah, our God, thou art, let him not prevail with thee, mortal man. And Jehovah smiteth the Cushim before Asa and before Judah, and the Cushim flee. And Asa and the people who are with him pursue them even to Gerar, and there fall of the Cushim, for they have no preserving, because they have been broken before Jehovah and before his camp, and they bear away very much spoil. I like that phrasing, bear away. I like all the phrasing here. And they bear away very much spoil, and smite all the cities round about Gerar, for a fear of Jehovah hath been upon them. And they spoil all the cities, for abundant spoil hath been in them. And also tents of cattle they have smitten, and they capture sheep in abundance, and camels, and turn back to Jerusalem. And I'm not reading Young's literal translation anymore because that's very silly.
yeah, it is silly.
Yeah. It's supposed to be literal to the Hebrew, and it seemed to like almost like not like at all to use any sort of past tense. It seemed a bit weird. It was almost like it was reading it, and they did it, and like it was trying to say maybe that's similar to
this.
Maybe that is more literal, I guess, to say and they do this as opposed to and they did it. Yeah.
So a few things about this. One, in this Cushite war, I guess you'd call it, 1 million people. A million.
It's obviously just an exaggerated statement. 1,000,000. They're not
with only 300 chariots.
That's it.
Right.
The thing is, there's kind of like before that war, right, where no one was left alive. There's kind of a rehabilitation of Asa, right? Because I think he doesn't tear down the high places and shit. when he in First Kings.
I mean, in First Kings, the account of Asa is only for like verses 9 through 24 in First Kings 15, and here it is expanded to 3 chapters. So
Right, yeah, they do a rehabilitation. They're kind of making him a reformer, like Hezekiah or Josiah.
So I got a
Yeah.
question. If in the Young's literal translation, it was 1,000,000. I'm trying to find that exact line in other translations to find out what the how does the number different.
that's verse 8, right?
Yeah. I mean, the
It
Hebrew is
honestly,
literally like
it's
in that context, it just
no,
sounds
it's-
like they're saying a great
2,000.
multitude.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do like Klein's comment. He notes that the NIV has "with a vast army," and he writes, "Do apologetic reasons lie behind this translation?"
I mean, it's to give the apologists to throw them a tiny bone. It is often the case that in language there are idioms and turns of phrase that are so commonly known people don't feel the need to define them, and then later on that involves a lot of misunderstanding until someone looks up.
Yeah.
So I mean,
But
we
King-
constantly get this thing where the word "elef" meaning 1,000, or possibly it could mean a unit, aluf, a lead, a unit commander, or something like that. So "elef alafim" could be like 1,000 units as opposed to 1,000.
A legion,
Yeah.
not one of Beleth's legions.
Yeah. I mean, the Hebrew is elef alafim, which means 1,000 of 1,000, which is 1,000,000. So, yeah, I don't think there's a way to sugarcoat it. It's 1,000,000.
Well, unless you say it is like 1,000 units, aluf.
And how do you still have 1,000,000 people after like everybody dies every other page?
I mean, come
Well,
on.
this is from a different place.
How did we? How many times did he have to kill all the sheep and cattle in Egypt during the 10 plagues? At least 3 times. Apparently, they were zombie necromancer mass overkilling. This is not new.
I mean, God in his teenage years was like really into like creating things from scratch. So you were just like, you just like recreate 1,000,000 people, then kill them and hide the evidence.
So you got 1,000,000 people and you've got 300 chariots, which means that you've got more than 3,000 guys to pull each chariot. You don't need horses.
No, they did really dislike
I mean,
horses.
you could say it's a 1,000,000 infantry and 300 chariots. With
I
its
I
company.
do like.
Yeah.
I do like Japhet's comment that the depiction of Zerach's army with its 1,000,000 quote-unquote troops and a disproportionately small unit of chariots can hardly be accepted as historical. These
Are we
and Shira-
complaining about the size of the chariots?
she writes that these extraordinary features should be seen as part of the schematic theological interpretation of the actual battle.
Well, yeah, I mean, Asa didn't want too many chariots. He didn't want to make God jealous. Like, but I have
Mm,
chariots.
God
you
is
don't.
very insecure if you have more horsepower than him.
I guess. Okay, so I'll start with verse 1, which is 1323 in the Masoretic text. So in his days, the country was at peace for 10 years. This verse contradicts what is said in 1 Kings 15, verses 16 and 32, which say that Asa and Baasha were at war all their days, and Baasha began to reign in the 3rd year of Asa. Klein notes that the verb shaket, was quiet, is also used of the quiet experienced by Yehoshaphat as a divine gift in 2030, and of rest subsequent to the assassination of Athaliah in 2321. Dillard writes that the rest concept is introduced in 1 Chronicles 22:9 during the tranquil and godly reign of Solomon, and is applied subsequently to point to the peace attending other godly reigns. On verse 3, which is 2, Levin comments, quote, Chronicles deleted King's standard comparison of Asa to David, as we see in 1 Kings 15:11, preferring to allow his piety to stand on its own. Chronicles also changed the details of the idolatrous practices which Asa removed from the land. According to 1 Kings 15:12, quote, he removed the male prostitutes out of the land and removed all the idols that his fathers had made, end quote. Followed immediately by the removal of his mother Ma'akah and her Asherah idol. In Japhet's opinion, the chronicler changed the terms used for the idolatrous practices, replacing the Kedashim, male prostitutes, and Gilulim, idols, with the more general terms, from the strongest conviction that its male prostitution existence should be silenced altogether. The objects that he does mention, such as altars, idols, standing stones, and asherim, are all mentioned as forbidden in Deuteronomy 7:5 and 16:21 and 22, among others. He's avoiding mention of the fact that such objects has been made by Asa's fathers, quote-unquote, in 1 Kings 15:12, is probably due to the fact that, to him, neither David nor Solomon, nor Rehoboam or Abijah ever did engage in such forbidden acts.
Now, what has he got against the male prostitutes?
Because they're icky.
Well, you know what the phrase is, the policeman who lashes the whore has a hot need to use her for the very offense for which he plies the lash. And those who are most concerned about male prostitutes are most desirous of soliciting their company.
Bruno Zeigert, 6379, says, offers $5 Canadian. It says, Napoleon invaded Russia with about 700,000 men, the largest army seen up to that time.
And what happened? Yeah.
Well, the point is he just needed that other 300,000
to get up to God's level. I know. I just go straight back to Vicini. Never get involved in a land war in Asia and never go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
I wonder how many chariots Napoleon had. Probably
they do
tanks.
Show him riding a horse, so at least he had the aesthetic, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, we didn't have war chariots, but they did have artillery, like wagons.
Yeah, they would have had that. Chariots, though, wouldn't really. That's not the terrain for chariots. I mean,
Nor the weather.
No,
wasn't the
definitely
terrain
not.
for soldiers.
No, it was the terrain for fucking off and going home.
No terrain for the French.
Poor French.
Okay, on verse 4, which is 3, Klein comments, quote, this positive admonition to the people is an important part of Asa's reform program and will occur with Jehoshaphat in 17:7-9, Hezekiah 36-9, and Josiah in 34:29-32. It had occurred already with David in 1 Chronicles 22:19, 28:8. Not only the king's faithfulness, but the people's as well is necessary. Seeking, in Hebrew darash, Yahweh, is an important motif in the Chronicles account of Asa. He also twice uses the synonym bakesh in 15 verses 4 and 15. Devotion to the God of the ancestors was also the source of Judah's deliverance in the previous chapter in 13:18. Seeking Yahweh here is defined as keeping the law, ha-Torah, and the commandment, ha-mitzvah. Relying on Yahweh would be a synonym. One assumes that such keeping of law and commandment is exemplified by the actions in the previous and the following verse. It is the opposite of seeking the Baals in 74 or of serving other gods in 7:19. While law, in Hebrew Torah, comes from Yahweh, as we see in 1 Chronicles 16:40 and 25:4, and through the agency of Moses in 2 Chronicles 23:18, 25:4, 30:16, etc., the law may also well need interpretation, 19:10, and actualization in 15:3. On verse 5, which is 4, incense altars. In Hebrew, chamanim, singular chaman. The noun appears in 34:4 and 7, Leviticus 26:30, Isaiah 17:8 and 27:9, and Ezekiel 6 verses 4 and 6. And its precise meaning is unclear. It has been suggested that to derive chaman from chama, referring to the sun, and thus chaman refers to a pillar for sun worship, as we see in Targum, which reads solar statues, Casualties, and BB Dictionary, or sun-shaped objects, as we see according to Botseko. But this is not widely accepted. Japhet notes that it is generally thought that this refers to an incense altar, a reading favored by Dillard, Jonker, Hallott, and most English translations. Klein suggested chapels based on the Palmyrene inscriptions. Septuagint and Peshitta read idols, and Vulgate temples. On verses 6 and 7, which is 5 and 6, these verses are full of the chronicler's language. His usual term for fortress cities and their detailed description, the use of the verb darash, the remark successful, in Hebrew it's sliach, and the chain of causal statements. Japhet notes that the conjunction of the building projects with days of rest and prosperity has an obvious theological point. A righteous person is rewarded by God with success, one aspect of which is building, quote unquote. The king doesn't bear the responsibility for ensuring the people's welfare alone. He needs the support of his subjects and turns to ask for it. As for the historical value of these verses, she writes, quote, Welton strongly suggests that the information is fictitious, regarding building as a topos, exclusively theological in function. In support of this opinion, one may point to the very general reference to the fortified cities, with no concrete names given. A less extreme view would regard this passage as a general elaboration of the note about the building of Geba and Mitzpah, cited from 1 Kings 15:22 and 2 Chronicles 16:6. On the other hand, it should be noted that for the Deuteronomistic as well, Asa was distinguished for his building, quote-unquote. He is the only Judean king who merits the reference to, quote, the rest of all the acts of Asa and the cities which he built, end quote, in 1 Kings 15:23. Unlike DH, the chronicler shows great interest in the theme of building, as a significant component of any enterprising reign. For Asa, Chronicles includes this item here in the general introduction, but omits it from his own conclusion in 1611. Unfortunately, our evaluation of this matter is hampered by lack of further details.
Ooh, look at the pretty. Who's this?
No comment.
Okay. I'm allowed
Okay,
to laugh.
Does anyone know what ASL is for snake?
ASL. No.
I was proposing it should
American
be
Sign Language, although you might potentially do British Sign Language.
Yeah.
There is.
Apparently, it's this. Something like this.
this.
No,
Okay.
this. Something like this. I don't know. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
I don't know ASL. I guess.
Okay.
Okay, never mind. On 8, which is 7, Levin notes that Asa's force of 580,000 warriors is larger than Rehoboam's 180,000, found in 11.1, and even more than Abijah's 400,000 in 13.3. Moreover, the army is composed of two parts, 300,000 spear bearers from Judah and 280,000 archers from Benjamin. He notes that scholars have debated the possible source of this information, with some, like Welton, claiming it to be a free composition of the chronicler, and others, like North and Williamson, assuming that it is based on a pre-exilic source that the chronicler had at his disposal. He writes, however, that it is impossible to prove either way, and, quote, our assessment must depend, to a large extent, on our general evaluation of chronicles as sources and of the chronicler's use of those sources, end quote. On 9, which is 8, Zerach the Cushite. It has been noted by commentators that Zerach is a Semitic name, which challenges the historical value of this invasion. Moreover, we do not know the exact social status of this Zerach, if he was a political leader or a military officer. Some scholars suggested that Zerach was a specific pharaoh, but there is no Egyptian king whose name resembles Zerach. The pharaoh during Asa's reign was Osokon I, during 924 through 889 BCE. Curtis and Matson suggested that Zerach was Osokon II, but this reading involves prolonging Asa's reign unreasonably. Lawrence's favorite, Kitchen, suggested that Zerach was, quote, a general of Nubian extraction, end quote, sent by Osokon I. Levin notes that others, like Japhet, Kil, Naaman, and Raini, suggested that the Cushites referring to nomadic tribes living in the deserts south of Judah, and that this encounter is to be seen as part of a wider conflict over the southern trade routes. Jonker suggested, based on various Greek texts, that the Kushites had a reputation at the time of being invincible, even more powerful than the Persian Empire. Thus, the chronicler may have used classical Greek traditions to emphasize that Yahweh's power is even greater than that of the Kushites, and by implication greater than that of the Persians. Klein notes Wellhausen and Welton's opinion that the story is a fabrication designed to illustrate the reward that Asa received for relying on Yahweh.
Yeah, he got peace and won a war. Ha!
And finally, on 10, which is 9, Valley of Zaphatha, in Hebrew, Gate Zaphatha. According to Judges 1:17, Zaphatha was a city which captured by the Judeans and Simeon from the Canaanites, but its exact location is unclear. Moreover, the identification of the town with a valley, Gai, or Gay, is problematic. Septuagint reads, in the ravine to the north of Marissa, which Japhet notes that it accords well with the preposition lamed in Lemaresha, at Maresha.
I want
Levin
to know what a valley gay is. I'm sorry. Is it a gay in a valley? Is it a bottom?
It's a valley gay.
Is it a
It's a valley
valley
gay.
girl? Whatever.
It's a gay that speaks like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the word Tzfata can mean there is a city
Zapheth.
with that name, but it can also refer to France. And so in that sense, gay Safata is a bit of an oxymoron. Not an oxymoron. What am I saying? It's the opposite of an oxymoron. It's a redundancy. Because you don't have to say they're gay if they're French.
No.
Gay
So
or
Levin
European.
Levin suggested that the reference may be to Tel Es-Safi, usually identified as the Philistine Gath, though this is rejected by Klein. Dillard notes that at Maresha, a valley provides a natural pass through the Shephelah via Nezib or Idna to the ridge at Hebron. This may have been the Valley of Tzefata.
Somebody says that valley gay sounds like a lotion.
Oh, like Ben Gay.
Aaron, what do you prefer better, boas or chokers when it comes to snakes?
That question makes no sense to me. Moving on.
There are no better chokers. You are definitely into living chokers.
Yeah. Because a choker is a type of necklace, and a boa is like a scarf, I guess. But it's also
it's more like a feather draped scarf. It's a aesthetic prop for show tunes and stuff, not warmth.
Feather boa, yeah.
Yeah, I used to wear those when I played Rocky Horror.
Classic.
Yep.
And very appropriate.
No interest questions.
All right. So I'll take over chapter 15. Number 15. The Spirit of God came
Oh God! Shut up! Can you shut up? Don't speak of dead memes when it is inappropriate.
Well, I'm glad you got it.
Yeah, I did.
That's good. The Spirit of God came upon Azariah, son of Oved. He went out to meet Asa and said to him,
Gross.
Hear me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you while you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you abandon him, he will abandon you. For a long time, Israel was without the true God and without a teaching priest and without law. But when in their distress, they turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him, he was found by them. In those times, it was not safe for anyone to go or come, for great disturbances afflicted all the inhabitants of the land. They were broken in pieces, nation against nation and city against city, for God troubled them with every sort of distress. But you, take courage. Do not let your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. When Asa heard these words, the prophecy of Azariah, son of Obed, he took courage and put away the abominable idols from all the land of Judah and Benjamin, and from the towns that he had taken in the hill country of Ephraim. He repaired the altar of the Lord that was in front of the vestibule of the house of the Lord. He gathered all Judah and Benjamin, and those from Ephraim, Manasseh, Simeon, Manasseh and Simeon, who were residing as aliens with them. For great numbers had deserted to him from Israel when they saw that the Lord his God was with him. They were gathered at Jerusalem in the 3rd month of the 15th year of the reign of Asa. They sacrificed to the Lord on that day from the spoil they had brought 700 oxen and 7,000 sheep. They entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart and with all their soul. And whoever would not seek the Lord, the God of Israel, was put to death, whether young or old, man or woman. They took an oath to the Lord with a loud voice, and with shouting, and with trumpets, and with horns. All Judah rejoiced over the oath, for they had sworn with all their heart, and had sought him with their whole desire, and he was found by them, and the Lord gave them rest all around. King Asa even removed his mother Maacah from being queen mother because she had made an abominable image for Asherah. Asa cut down her image, crushed it, and burned it at the Wadi Kidron. But the high places were not taken out of Israel. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was true all his days. He brought into the house of God the votive gifts and his father, and his own votive gifts, silver, gold, and utensils. And there was no more war until the 35th year of the reign of Asa. So, I actually have a few things on this. So, we still continue the rehabilitation for the most part. But remember, it was in where was it? When he tore down the high places and stuff. That was all in Judah, right? But in Israel, he didn't tear them all down. So it rehabilitates Judah to some extent, more than it does.
More than Israel, but Israel has some.
Though
Asa is still a good guy.
Isn't there a thing in Chronicles where Israel refers to Judah? If I remember correctly, like sometimes the chronicler when the chronicler speaks of Israel, he speaks of Judah. If I remember correctly.
I mean,
maybe
this chapter is about Asa.
It doesn't make sense
right?
I mean, because it doesn't really make sense because he doesn't rule Israel, right?
Yeah, he like kind of helps Israel, but not totally, right?
I think the reference is to Judah, if I remember correctly. But let me see.
I mean, yeah,
because like before they do talk about Judah.
Okay, so it's exactly clear. So yeah, the Targum says that it refers to the northern kingdom. It is a long time since those of the house of Israel separated from those of the house of Judah. They mistakenly followed Jeroboam. They did not worship the true God, but bowed down to golden calves. They had no priest to teach righteousness. Instead, they had priests who offered up incense for the foreign cult, but they did not concern themselves with the law.
And remember in Kings, it was the Levites were not allowed to be the priest for them. So they were... God, what's the word I'm looking for? They were not guilty of the sin.
Though I did note in the commentary that it is also unclear if that refers to the past or the future, because the passage could be read either as referring to the future, which is taken by the Septuagint and the Vulgate, but I think most commentators take it as referring to the past. Remember correctly? Yeah, specifically to the Judges period.
Which verse are you talking about?
3.
Which is...
for a long time Israel was without the true God.
What do you mean which is?
Yeah. I was just checking. No. Yeah, it was the last chapter where it was different.
It does seem to be a bit confused about which kingdom it's talking about with Asa half the time. So it's, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
either way, right? There is a whole lot of aniconism in here, tearing down of images and all of that. But what's interesting to me is in Kings, when so even if a king does like a good job, right? He's always kind of scolded for not taking down the high places, even though everything else he did was good. And in this one, it's similar, but it seems like the guilt is even less for Asa, because
Yeah.
it does say like, yeah, the high places were not taken out of Israel. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was true all his days.
Hmm.
So it does seem to, the constructions at least. I don't know if it shows in the
To
Hebrew or not.
harmonize it, you'd have to say that
it
he
does.
conquered some of Israel, but he didn't bother removing the high places in the areas he conquered. So
He helped.
It does, and it is also found in 1 Kings 15:14. The Asa's heart was wholehearted, or he was shalem all his days. So
poor guy.
I think it's interesting that you keep saying this is the chronicler rehabilitating Asa as a good king, and it's got this whole section where like, oh, they did a thing where all the people of the land came and they reaffirmed their convictions to God, and those who didn't were put to death, men, women, the young and the old, and somehow
that too. But the thing is, he's kind of becoming the precursor now to people like Hezekiah and Josiah.
And Josiah seems to have been a bit of a copy of Joash's story, and that's a whole different thing.
And also, if I can I guess the do you have any Christians for this one? Any Christian commentary?
I do have Christians for
Can
this.
Can I guess what it is?
Oh,
Yes.
Who is it? Who is it?
Well, I don't know who, but I can guess that something about, I don't know if is there a citation to Matthew perhaps?
Let me check.
Because
There is
those who don't join the New Testament will be killed.
That's funny.
No.
Okay.
There is one on John, I believe, and 1 Corinthians.
Okay. Because like some of these phrases, and maybe it's just because I've been translating Matthew, but some of these phrases are kind of familiar, right? Like when he says, like, if you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you abandon him, he will abandon you. Seeking you will find is definitely a verse that is that's in Matthew. And then, God, what else was there?
There's also the ethic of if you deny me before men, I will also deny you before my Father in heaven. But if you
yes, that's also true.
Men, yeah.
Empty threat.
Yeah. There's also a lot of speaking of like rewards that where was it? There was something specific. Oh yeah, the votive gifts, right? Matthew talks about silver and gold and I forget the other object, but this one says silver, gold, and utensils. Yeah, it's probably just the parallel mania kicking in. But that was just my guess, right? Because at least for that first part, seeking you will find, that's absolutely in Matthew. I'm sure it's probably in other gospels too, but
no.
But it's not to do with that though.
No.
Ah,
no.
damn.
But I think. Wait, let me just check real quick. No. I mean, kinda. No, kinda. Kinda.
No, gold and utensils because Jesus is the
no.
Or whatever.
No. It is about verses 2 and 3, but once we'll get to that, yeah.
2 and 3.
Motivo Trevorn 10100 says, based on the Tomer's commentary.
The
Tomer's commentary.
The Tomer. That's very.
You know what?
It's very like ancient languagey because they would often use articles with names. So
I like it.
Yeah.
People
How
speculate that I'm
significant-
AI. People speculate that I'm AI, so fuck it. I'm AI. I'm the Tomer.
How
Yeah, why not?
significant was the southern trade routes in this biblical narrative, and to what extent is it historical?
This southern trade route? Which one?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm also not sure. They had quite a few trade routes, and that we know that there were like some big trading hub cities in the region.
Or maybe maybe he means
there we go.
specifically going through Judah. Like, would a Judah have
Maybe.
been powerful because it straddled an important trade route? And I don't think so. They
No,
probably
Judah
would have
was
either gone down the
never-
coast or the
Most
King's
of the other
Road.
places that are mentioned are Ethiopia and Egypt. So
There
Where-
were
If we
certainly
could.
more. There were certainly greater trade routes in the north than in the
Yeah,
south.
Judah was very rocky. Even if you needed to go through
hill
that area, it
country,
would
it
be
wouldn't have
easier to go around. Yeah, but in a very
Yeah.
craggy, difficult to navigate kind of way. At
Right.
least
You would have
the-
just gone. You would have taken the King's Road from
Yeah.
the Red Sea straight to the Dead Sea, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then you had the River Jordan, which would take you all the way up to Syria, and then you could get to Iraq that way, rather than
Right.
through the desert. You had the coast
reminds me
routes
that that
to
valley,
Lebanon.
that
Hmm?
valley where Indiana Jones was pointing the bazooka at the Ark when the Nazis were trying to get through that valley. I believe that's in the area that Lilith is talking about. That's also the same valley that R2D2 was plowing through. Exact same
Oh.
scene with the camera in the same place.
I thought those were both
So,
filmed in like
California.
Tunisia or Morocco,
No, Tunisia,
rather
really.
than
Amen.
rather
Yeah.
than Jordan, Petra.
I
Were they-
believe
were they
in
filmed in Petra?
R2 more than I do in Moses. So
Someone in the
Mhm.
comments might know if it's Jordan or Tunisia.
MRE 6330 offers $2 Australian with no message.
aw, thanks for the love.
Also, is
Okay.
it just me, or are
It
the
should be.
names right now like the account names instead of the
There
username?
appears to be
They're not-
some
they're
sort
not
of
the
glitch where
names.
people are using account or username.
Right. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
No,
it's
they're
like,
not-
yeah, when we
they're not the
see-
names. What YouTube is showing now are the channel's handles. So if you haven't set your handle to your actual name, it's going to show a different name than you're used to.
Right.
wrong. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little
Yeah, I
confused
think.
with what
Yeah, I
YouTube
think
is doing
Motivo
because
people-
the last few days, when I go on Gmail, look on social, it usually shows all of these comments on my various videos and such. But for whatever reason, for the last few days, it's nothing but LinkedIn, as if nobody has for the last 4 or 5 days commented on any of my videos.
YouTube is
Yeah,
screwed up completely. For me, some videos won't even play. It's been like that for about a week now.
I think
Yep.
YouTube is owned by Google, and they have gotten too big and gone against their original goal, which was to not be evil. And I don't know what they're changing, but considering that, as far as I know, it's still based in the States, I'm going to assume it's a violation of privacy, human rights, and any security you might have imagined your information to have. But,
I think
So
I
it
think it's a
is.
bit easier,
Sometimes
Lilith.
it's happening
I
now.
think YouTube is battling the ad blockers that people have been using. With the ad
well, if they
blockers.
wouldn't have so many obnoxious auto-tuned ads, I was on YouTube when there were no ads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I accidentally signed up for YouTube Premium, and I kind of glad I did.
I didn't accidentally sign up for it. I purposefully signed up for it, and it's fucking awesome. To be able to have background play and no ads is actually fucking great. For like
Yeah.
$10 a month, it's actually solid. Like, I'll take it. I'm not gonna be here shilling, but the YouTube Premium is fucking awesome. It used to be called YouTube Red, but yeah, YouTube Premium is fucking awesome.
I just put
So-
on my phone, put down the brightness.
What you're saying, Lawrence, is that YouTube is now annoying pretty much everyone in chat because they have no clue why they have a different name, just to make sure that they also pay their $10 for YouTube Premium.
I am not saying. I am
Someone
saying that
pointed
I
out
enjoy it.
that there have been a lot of background changes on YouTube. And Aaron, I believe before the last show, you were talking to us about a channel that had been an iconic atheist channel that had been deleted.
Yeah. Yep. DPR Jones.
DPR Jones, yeah. And
which is really shitty because the guy died like years ago.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for keep it for posterity. Keep those old videos up. You know, it was the guy's contribution of his life, literally his life's work.
Yeah.
And YouTube just decided to press a button and destroy it.
Well, I'm hopeful that someone has backed up some of those videos somewhere and will be willing to share them. But yeah, it's that or
no, the shitty thing was that it was a lot of his other work, that all the work that he didn't have on YouTube, he originally had on Blog TV. You remember Blog TV?
So when that went away, in the fucking day.
Oh, when that went away, all of his other work went away.
Okay, so we need to make sure that all the good old atheist channels have backups and a store of videos somewhere. So somebody download everything Aaron ever did.
Yeah, that's not a bad suggestion. Please do.
The problem with that, Lilith, is that DPR's channel was deleted because of new rules that weren't rules at the time that he made the video. So even if you make a copy, that channel is going to get deleted because it's going to violate the exact same rules. It's stupid.
Well, there are other video channels that nobody knows about. I mean, they do exist.
Yeah. The point is that we need a record. We need to have, and we can put it out on multiple platforms at multiple times or keep it in the Wayback Machine. But yeah, that's...
Yeah. Are we moving on to the next chapter?
Aaron?
Yes.
Have you ever gotten the format?
Sorry, have you forgotten your line?
Say the line.
No, that's not how the format goes.
All right,
I'm supposed
16
to say,
it is.
I'm supposed to say the line when somebody interrupts my commentary.
Well, I think I just did.
No, you didn't. I haven't even started it. Okay. I'm drunk. So we'll start with verse 1. We have no other information about Azariah, son of Oved, though Azariah is a common name. Japhet notes that out of all the prophets whose words are presented in Chronicles, we know of only 4 whom God's Spirit was upon them. Amasai in 1 Chronicles 12:9, which is 8 in the Old Testament, Azariah Yahaziel the Levite in 2 Chronicles 20:14, and Zechariah son of Jehoiada in 24:20. These prophets are relatively unknown, and she suggests that this idiom is used by the chronicler to mark the first utterance of non-professional quote-unquote prophets. It is generally agreed among scholars that Azariah's speech was composed by the chronicler, but it could be that the prophet may be based on an authentic tradition which the chronicler knew about.
Yeah, that would be pretty normal. You know of an idea or prophecy. You script it well for your... Yeah.
On verse 3, the Hebrew text can be understood as referring either to the past, as we see in Peshitta, Pseudo-Rashi, Meyuchas, and Targum regards it as a description of the northern kingdom, or the future, as we see in Septuagint and Vulgate. A similar phrasing is found in Hosea 3:4, which several commentators like Japhet and Levin suggest that the verse here is based on. But the vision there seems to refer to the future. Most scholars take the verse here as referring to the past, either to the Exodus and wilderness period, according to Divrey, the time of the judges, according to Rudolph, Myers, Japhet, Klein, and Dillard, or to Rehoboam and Abijah's time, according to Kill, with the preference being for the time of the judges.
I just saw a notification a moment ago that said that was side channel are joined and their viewers. Sorry.
Wait, what?
Oh, I was just looking at the chat. There was a notification about
Hive-Sai.
Hive-Sai. It's a Hive-Sai raid.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hello,
Hive-Sai.
Hive-Sai.
Official on YouTube now.
yeah, Bree ended the show and directed all of the viewers to this one.
Oh, that's nice.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What are you, fucking nerds? So in verse 7, Klein comments, quote, if the promises of verse 2 has been realized in the victory over Zerach, Azariah now urges Asa, Judah, and Benjamin, and the people of the Chronicles' audience, not to grow complacent or rest on their laurels. As the next verses make plain, this was interpreted to mean that they should continue and even accelerate the reforms they had begun. The chronicler may well be using this speech to include additional information about Asa's reform that he had at his disposal. In a sense, the reform activities have been interrupted by the invasion of Zerach. The prophet Zephaniah had urged his hearers not to let their hands grow dark in 316, and the prophet Zechariah had put that in a positive context, let your hands be strong, in Zechariah 8, 9, and 13. The affirmations about the doctrine of retribution from verse 2 are repeated here with the promise that their work would be rewarded. The chronicler seems to be quoting Jeremiah 31:16, although he changes its pronouns from the second feminine singular, referring to Rachel, to the second masculine plural. The reward applies to Asa, Judah, and Benjamin, or to the chronicler's audience for that matter.
I just want to point out real quick one of the comments. Kip Davis says, "What the fuck? Since when is Tomer a person?" Well, I have another question. What the fuck, Kip? Where are you? Why is Kip
Yeah, why
not
is
here?
your ass not on the screen?
You cannot speculate that I'm a person or not if you're not here. Like,
Yeah, and if
at least
Tomer calls you a nerd, always
were
remember
you there?
he's a bigger one.
Were you there, Kip?
I'm
Also, this isn't-
trademarked.
This isn't Tomer. This is the Tomer.
Trademark.
Ah, yes, the Tomer.
It's an Android AI generated chatbot.
Beep
so you're
boop. Read
you're-
Rashi.
Oh, okay. No. Just get the R2 sound behind you. You'll be good. But if you two get fighting about Rashi again,
Or pseudo Russians. I
is
can't
there a
wait
difference
for
anymore?
Ezra. Kinda. Read Weisel's work. Okay, so in verse 8, the prophecy of Azariah, son of Oded the prophet. The Masoretic text reads, the prophecy Oded the prophet. In Hebrew, Vehanevuah Oded Hanavi. A reading preserved in the Septuagint and Targum. Kimchi wrote that Oded the prophet means the son of Oded the prophet, as in the presence of my uncle Hanamel, in Jeremiah 31:12, which means the son of my uncle, also Gersonides. Alternatively, he writes that Oded may have relayed a prophet like this to Asa on another occasion, or that he was still alive since we encountered him in the days of Achaz in 28:9, also suggested by Meyuchas, Botzeko, and Ibn Kaspi. And many Septuagint manuscripts, Vulgate and many Hebrew Septuagint manuscript reads, the prophecy of Azariah, the son of Oded the prophet, a reading favored by Curtis and Madsen, Rudolph, and Japhet. Others suggested deleting Oded the prophet as a gloss intended for verse 1 to indicate the office that Azariah held. Peshitta reads, the words of Azariah, son of Azur the prophet. On that same verse, the towns he had captured in the hills of Ephraim. This seems at odds with the claim that Asa enjoyed 10 years of peace. Moreover, there is no mention of such conquests. Levin notes that some scholars, like Rudolph, assume that this refers to the towns of Geba and Mitzpah, which Asa would later take from Baasha in 1606. However, these cities could be thought of as being in the hill country of Ephraim, if the term is used very loosely. Others, like Curtis and Madsen, Kalai, and Japhet, suggested that the reference is to the 3 cities that had been captured by Abijah in 1319, which were not described as ever having been returned to northern control. He writes, however, that it would be unusual for the chronicler to attribute the father's conquest to the son, and in fact 17:2 mentions Jehoshaphat putting garrisons, quote, in the cities of Ephraim that his father Asa had taken, end quote. Thus, the chronicler may have had a tradition that Asa had conquered northern towns at some stage of his reign. On verse 9, Simeon. The appearance of Simeon here is surprising, since it is usually assumed that Simeon was absorbed by Judah at an early period, as we see in Joshua 19, 1-9, and 1 Chronicles 4, 28-43. Klein writes that the chronicler did have access to some genealogical records for Simeon that mention activity as late as the time of Hezekiah, and that Simeon is mentioned in the activities of Josiah's reform in 34:6. He writes that the chronicler may have mechanically reckoned Simeon to the northern kingdom to achieve a total of 10 tribes, since he associated Judah and Benjamin with the southern kingdom. Levin notes that some scholars, like Noth and Grint, suggested that there may have been a group of people who were identified as Simeonites in the northern part of Israel, perhaps during the pre-exilic period, but more likely in the chronicler's own day. Riney suggested that the reference is to the city of Shimon in the northwestern Jezreel Valley, attested several times in sources ranging from the 18th century BCE to rabbinic time. In his opinion, in both Asa's time and in Josiah's, this city replaced the recently destroyed Megiddo as the main center of Israelite population in the Jezreel Valley. He writes, however, that this does not explain why people from the Galilee and Transjordan did not come to join Asa. He writes, quote, "Perhaps Chronicles lists these tribes because there were people in his own time, in Persian period Yehud, who were thought to be descendants from them, while the Galilean and Transjordanian tribes were thought to have been lost, quote-unquote, to the Assyrian exile. In the end, no answer seems to be totally satisfactory."
It does kind of make sense that to say, like, oh, these people, they joined at this time, because now we can see that there are people who claim, descent from the tribes of Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon, which is something I think that does continue on until the Second Temple period.
Fair enough.
After the whole, 10, what's it called again? The 10 tribes go missing or whatever. There is, I think, still mention of people from the tribes of Ephraim, Manasseh.
Which makes it rather not 10 tribes, more like 6, when you also count Judah and Benjamin out of the 12. But yeah,
it's supposed to be remnants rather than the whole tribe.
No, but if Simeon was absorbed into Judah and Benjamin also cast its lot with Judah, then going from the 12, that would not work. But in any event,
and Levi isn't part of the. So it's kind of like
but Levi were the priests, so that at least had some excuse. However, post hoc it might be.
Yeah, I guess you could say yes.
Dr.
Simeon
Kip
was
Davis says, "I have been absconded by the fucking selfish dinosaur." That doesn't sound like a real channel name. He has kept me in prison since December, and he won't let me go.
It's Dapper Dino.
He's been cheating on us.
Yeah. Listen, Kip, if you're gonna cheat on us with Dapper Dino, at least invite me.
Be like Edom, who rebelled against Solomon or something like that.
Okay, no threesomes behind the channel's back. All orgies must be inclusive.
Okay.
And with condoms. On verse 10... on verse 10, Japhet comments, quote, "In the context of the chronistic narrative, the 15th year of the reign of Asa is somewhat difficult. According to the sequence of events, there was no war in Asa's reign for 10 years, as we see in 14:1, which is 1323 in the Masoretic text. And then, i.e., in Asa's 11th year, the war with Zerach broke out. Since the events described in this chapter follow the victory in verses 2 and 8, and the festive sacrifices are offered from the spoil in verse 11, this convocation must be placed in the 12th year of Asa at the latest. These data may lead us to two opposite conclusions. If the reference to the 15th year is a reliable piece of information drawn from some other source, and therefore not fully integrated into the narrative, for example by changing the date of the war with Zerach, then Asa's act of reform are given an authentic ring. On the other hand, the date may be totally artificial, based on the schematic number 5, 10 years in 14:1, 15 in 15:10, 35 in verse 19. If the chronicler assumed that the reader's familiarity with this numerical symbolism, he would not invest effort in harmonizing the narrative details.
Dr. Kip Davis directs a comment to Lilith saying, "Do you think I make choices? Which, in the context of the conversation of what she was just saying, it sounds like it's an argument for polyamory.
I mean, fair enough. I think Kip doesn't like to take responsibility for his choices. He wants someone else to be in charge. And there's no reason you couldn't bring them over. After all, if we could never come across dinosaur claims in the Bible, maybe the nonsense said about Job.
Yeah.
Aaron's
Okay.
done a video about that for sure. You look, I can't remember what it's called though, where he tells us, talks about Job's dinosaurs and how they're not dinosaurs.
No, it's an alligator and an elephant. Get over yourselves.
Or
But
something like that.
yeah, come on. It's evangelical apologetics. It's not like they're going to do anything reality based.
I'm gonna grab some alcohols.
Ah, yes. Well, the weed has already hit me,
spirits.
so I can't be getting alcohols too.
I'm not gonna complain.
So
Okay.
you said you're done.
No, I never said
Ah?
that.
What did you say?
Lies. I said no. I didn't say that. No, not the format.
Tomer.
Nope. Sorry, mistress. I'm
Say-
not gonna say that. No. I'm gonna be a brat on this.
He's a professional. He'll only do it in the right context. Okay, let's go.
Yes. I have to maintain
Oh.
my reputation. You know.
Your reputation as a spoil sport?
I'm an android.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on verse 13, Levin describes this verse as excessively draconian, especially if lemin katon ve'ad gadol is understood as whether young or old, in Septuagint youth or elder. Voget, Peshita, and Targum read whether small or great, which might indicate status, not age, according to YQ. Japhet notes that the opening "whoever would not worship" in Hebrew "v'kol asher lo yidrosh" is used as an expression of a severe warning in different contexts during the Persian period, as we see in Ezra 7:26 and 8:10. She writes that the punishment, in all its aspects, is typical of warning statements from the Persian period, i.e., is of the chronicler's own provenance. Although some scholars, like Williamson and Dillard, compare this statement with the commandments in Deuteronomy 13:6-10 and 17:2-7, Levin notes that there, the death penalty is imposed on those who actively engage in idolatry. Here, it is expanded to include all those who passively do not seek the Lord, quote unquote.
Passively do not seek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I did seek him. He wasn't there.
Have you tried enough? Hard enough.
Yep. I'm not even
Including-
arguing it.
I guess. Okay. On verse 19, 1 Kings 15:16 reads, "There was war between Asa and King Baasha of Israel all their days." Klein writes that since Baasha became king in Asa's 3rd year and died in Asa's 26th year, as we see in 1 Kings 15:33 and 16:8, this means that there was fighting between the two kings over a 24-year period, or 60% of Asa's reign. Pseudo-Rashi suggested that this corresponds to the 36th years from the time that Solomon married Pharaoh's daughter. Levin notes that many translations add more to "there was no war," and thus read "there was no more war," i.e. no more war from Asa's cleansing of the land until his 35th year. He notes that Williamson rejects this addition, preferring to assume that the chronicler considered the king's statement as referring to a Cold War, quote-unquote, which only developed into a real conflict after year 35. Japhet, however, rejects this and writes that the chronicler utterly altered, quote-unquote, the statement in Kings in order to portray the first part of righteous Asa's reign as one of total peace, which is an interpretation favored by Klein.
It's interesting how there's always more than one potential propaganda angle that can be argued over.
Now, Christians, finally, have some.
Oh.
So-
You didn't put out the traps, did you? I told you to spray.
I mean, we haven't had them for quite a while, so like,
It's been working.
Yeah.
you
So-
stopped.
So we'll start with Jerome, who wrote that as humans have many facial expressions, so also do the feelings of their hearts vary. If it were possible for us to be always immersed in the waters of baptism, sins would fly over our heads and leave us untouched.
Sharks are the most sin-free creatures because they always keep their head below the waters of baptism.
Yeah. And Theodoret says that impiety always leads us to worship false idols and to drive us away from the ineffable goodness of God.
It's ineffable. Don't F it.
Yeah.
But what's the relevance to this chapter? It's just like they just read a chapter and be like,
They
Oh,
just
so
impose their own theological view on everything.
I mean,
which
in Theodoret's case, it refers to verse 3. He writes that the passage shows that impiety of the 10 tribes, for a long time Israel was without God, etc. Do not imitate, the scripture says, the impiety of your brothers. They do not preach the true God, but pursue false idols. For this reason, they have been deprived of the priests and the teachers who could teach them the law of God. Experience, therefore, becomes our guide in showing the damages of impiety. For after being afflicted by any kind of calamity, they implored now the help of God, giving themselves entirely to the ineffable goodness of the Lord.
wait,
Once
so
again,
because they
ineffable,
sinned,
better not F
they
it.
lost the priests.
Again?
So because of their sins, they lost the priests and leaders.
Yes.
Well,
who
the
would help them.
correctly ordained priests. They had other priests, but they weren't the Levite priests that God had this special thing with. Also,
but-
I'm wearing the even star. Does that count as blasphemy? Is that following a strange god, or do I need to do something ritualistic?
I don't know about strange. It's very well written.
Oh, yes.
No, I mean, it doesn't make sense. Like God punishes them by taking away the people that would help them to repent.
Yes, because it's taking away the right to the correct form of communication with him. It's like he's blocking their number
Okay.
for a while. He'll unblock them when he decides to hoover them for more attention. But right now they're getting the silent treatment, so they have to go talk to the witch of Endor.
Are you saying that God ghosts them?
Yeah, and Darvo.
The Holy Ghost.
The Holy Ghost! Woo! Yeah.
It's just another point on. Oh, there we go. There we go. There's the magic Holy Ghost.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
I
it's
haven't
just
had that
another
in a long
point on
time.
narcissist bingo.
Yeah. Sure. So, Aaron, please.
Oh.
Fuck the tumor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry,
since he has
the
been such a
Android
brat,
silence malfunctions.
he will now be known as the tumor.
No, I
Aaron
wouldn't
is
do that
definitely
to
not
him.
ineffable.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go F it.
Yes.
God, I don't believe in being ineffable. All right. I would normally try to move on to the next chapter, but
Snakes. Is it snakes? Tell me it's snakes, please.
it's a convention called Repticon.
Close
my
enough.
God.
Close enough.
Yes, it's snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife and my son want to go to see the snakes at Repticon, so I have to join them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you poor thing.
co-partner.
Sure.
It's your duty. I just give my love to Lalandra and tell her to say hello and come by anytime she wants, because I miss having another girl here.
Yep,
Yeah.
I do too.
I mean,
All right.
I would say like have a break in Canada, but like I'd be worried about getting back in though.
Why would you want to?
So we were just want to make sure I get my notes right because I started this one off on the wrong chapter. We're going to be doing 15 next week.
16.
16.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to note that. All right, any closing comments?
Yeah,
Lauren?
absolutely. You got to join the Discord. If you don't, Isaac will punch you in the face, and you don't want that.
Should you threaten to send me or not to send me?
Yeah, not to send you. If I was gonna be like, oh, or Lilith will kick you in the balls, they're gonna be like, yeah, all right.
Unless
Lawrence
it's
is
your
thinking-
fetish, which is
Well, that's
Well,
the point. Is not
well-
everybody likes the same things.
Lawrence looks at his unit selection and he's like, yeah, Isaac's technique is punching. Yeah, that's my move.
Maybe he thinks you're secretly a ninja.
yeah.
Okay. Tomer, say goodbye.
Why me?
All right,
I'm the
goodbye.
social awkward person. Why me?
Peter says he ends the show when you say goodbye.
Yep.
Do I? Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
There. Goodbye.
Because you always come
Beautiful.
last.